Welcome back to Finnegan's Garage. The last time you saw Blasphemy, it spilled its guts all over the ground. It was a mess. But it is fixed, and that all happened while I was filming an episode of Roadkill. While Joe had a nice cushy week of rebuilding a transmission and towing my car to PRI, I was freezing my nuts off in this thing with Freiburger while filming an episode of Roadkill. I still feel like I got the better end of the deal on that. Yeah. That's a old fiberglass boat body on top of a Nissan Versa. Arguably, this is the best incarnation of the Nissan Versa ever created. This should have been a factory option. Let's go. Joe and Jordan went to Tick Performance.
We made the long trek last night all the way from Steele, Alabama. Got in about 2 o'clock in the morning and got up this morning and finished our drive to here. This is Matt going to Tick Performance. We are in we're Mount Airy, North Carolina, at Matt's personal shop. We blew the tranny up in this yesterday. Like, we didn't just hurt it, we grenaded it. Literally, the tail shaft is gone, the input shaft is sheared in pieces. Here is this beautiful G-Force D56 transmission, and boom, not much left on this side. And yes, the input shaft is still in the end of the yoke. It doesn't seem to want to come out. That's not good. We don't even know where the rest of it is. So we're going to try and get this out today. Hopefully repair it.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's the goal. If not, find out what our other options are. We're going to get started. Thank you again for having us up here.
Absolutely.
Let's get to work.
All right, let's
get
do
this thing out and see where we're at.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right.
I almost kind of wonder if it bottomed out on something, yoke bottomed out on something maybe. I don't see how that could be possible.
I think we actually, that's one of the things why we had that guy do this drive shaft up there at Biggins.
Yeah.
Is because it was kind of long.
Yeah.
It didn't have a whole lot, and when we changed it, he did shorten it up a little bit.
Yeah, if it bound up and then,
Bust the case.
it would just bust.
Main shaft has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
It breaks the main shaft.
Yeah, I don't know that that's what happened. But
I had a friend send me a message on Facebook last night. I think Mike had posted something on maybe Instagram or something yesterday. And he goes, "Did you blow another tranny?" I go, "No, Mike did." He goes, "What happened?" I go, "It went boom. What do you want me to tell you?" It simply just went boom. Hey Mike, there's your output shaft.
What's left of it?
It is pretty hammered.
Yeah.
Mike, buddy, you gotta quit doing this.
You know, since I just started working with Mike in July, I can't tell you how many clutches and transmissions I've removed and then put installed out of cars since I've been there.
Jeez.
I've lost count.
Well, I don't know if I want my transmission in this thing.
Oh yeah.
You just take the rest of that tail housing off, it'll come right out.
Probably can.
We have Aaron here. Aaron is our transmission specialist over here at Tick Performance. Aaron, do you have any initial thoughts and maybe a diagnosis on what could have happened here?
I don't know, unless it's just dead hooked or something. Maybe weight to power ratio deal on the main shaft.
Yeah. Well, there still is more to try to figure out, but for now, that is what Aaron has to think of right now. Could have been a little bit too much going down with the drag strip.
Just gotta get the little trans tunnel cover off of here, and then I can get to the top of the shifter to remove it, to help remove the transmission, make it a little easier that way. Here is a top view of the tail housing. It can almost take the whole tail shaft off now, but it's stuck to the shifter rod. So the shifter's gonna come off.
Well, just got all the bolts out. Shifter's off, bolts are out. We're ready to just pull it right back out now.
What was that?
Pieces.
A fitting. Huh? It's a fitting.
Okay.
A fitting? Well, this just fell out of the bell housing. That is not looking good. I'm curious where this came from, though. That's for sure.
Well, there's a fitting that looks like it goes in this slave cylinder, but there's no fittings missing from it.
All right.
But there's one in my hand.
We got new parts for that.
Yeah. All right.
But it's still in good shape.
Yeah.
I'll save it as a keeper. It's going in the toolbox, guys.
Taking the slave cylinder off, that way we don't have to unhook all the lines. Then the transmission will be all the way out after that. Have you guys have this bell housing indexed?
Yeah, I believe he has.
Those slaves been rubbing on the input shaft a little bit.
That's not rubbing. That's self-clearancing.
Yeah.
I don't know how though. The pilot bearing's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unless there's just a little bit of movement in those bolt holes, maybe.
Wow. Well, heck, it's got flatheads. It shouldn't move.
It should.
No.
Should locate. I'm gonna take this tail housing off, or what's left of it, real quick. It's not supposed to do that. We're gonna load this thing up in the car and get it over to Tick to get it apart and get it taken care of. We're also gonna take this with us to see if we can get this out of the yoke and make sure that it's still usable. Hopefully it is.
Hey, Matt.
What's going on?
How are you?
Welcome to Tick Performance.
Nice.
Yeah, some of the billet shift forks, these are in Mike's transmission. Some of the shifter stuff, he has one of those in there, obviously.
Valley pans. Now, for those of you out there, I've seen the cores on these. These cores are really nice.
Yeah.
They're nice cores.
They are, they're very nice. And one of the things that we do that kind of sets us apart is we use in this particular model, we'll use a 3-inch thick core, but we're installing the lid. So, you're adding distance between the base and the lid.
Right.
We're only adding 2 3/4 of an inch with the 3-inch core because we actually push the core into the lid and down into the base.
Wow.
So that gives you a more compact fitment, but still gives you the cooling ability that people really need.
Nice.
Because everything's making 1,000 horsepower now.
Great. I know.
And here we've got our billet front plates on the back wall here. So we keep the bulk of our parts that are machined and ready to go together here. We've got some intercooler stuff stacked up right here that hasn't been assembled yet. So like some that are welded and ready to go together. Some spacers. These are for the Coyote intercoolers that we just came out with. Also fits a hollow mouth load. I don't know if there's any Coyote guys on this channel or not, but there's a lot of them.
Look at these. These are super nice.
We do have several customers running this, so we rate this up to 1,400 horsepower. And I actually have a few customers running this at 1,600 horsepower, and they're telling me they're not having any issues. So
Amazing.
I'm super impressed by the ability of these things. I mean, they work great.
Yeah.
What's up, Aaron? How you living?
I'm doing all right.
How was your lunch?
It's good.
Heck yeah.
How was yours?
Shoot, I can't complain. It was very good.
Just disassembling everything, checking everything as we go. See how far the damage goes.
Right on. We found anything other than the tail being kind of funky?
Not so far. There's a little bit of metal on the magnets right here that usually indicates some gear wear, but we'll check it out.
So how are we looking here?
So far so good.
Everything looks okay, other than that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of metal on the magnets right here.
Oh.
And a lot of times that'll be a bore lug or something, especially on faceplated gear.
Okay. Are these splines messed up too here?
I hope not.
Are they normally that hard to get off?
No, most time they come off real easy if you can get this thing good and straight.
Oh.
But where it's broke off, kind of crude, hopefully we can get it like this. If not, we'll just have to cut the end of the main shaft off and go again.
All this stuff look good?
Oh yeah,
Out of there?
everything good so far. We'll have to cut that main shaft off right there. So
Behind the gears?
yeah, we just cut it right there at the spline.
Oh. after you cutting that off, it was gonna pop right off there. Come on, Aaron.
Oh, that thing's pretty trick, Aaron.
Yeah. Matt actually made this for us.
Really?
Yeah.
That thing's pretty trick, huh, Jay?
You're welcome. It's because I helped you.
It is. Just wear on the bearings, wear on engagement teeth. It's got factory 5th and 6th in it. If you're racing, you only run first through 4th, like in a quarter-mile application, so you wouldn't really need 5th and 6th face plated, and makes it a little more streetable. A drag and drive deal usually keeps 5th and 6th, and just utilize the factory stuff.
According to Mike, it's a dream to drive on the highway with this in 6th gear. It's like 2,200 RPM, just cruises down the highway. He was so in love with it this last trip he had on it. So those gears are more important than the other ones. So what do those 2 pins hold?
The interlock.
What's that?
They're interlock bolts.
Okay.
One will go in the 5th, 6th reverse rail, and one will go in the interlock on the shift selector on the main rail.
So now the rest of the gears are through the faceplate, right?
Yeah, everything else will be faceplate.
Got it.
This is the part Matt will have to look at because we'll have to machine that main shaft to adapt to this bearing.
Oh, okay. No unusual wear?
Not on that one.
So which gears are which?
The 2 on the back side is 5th and 6th gear.
Right, those are the ones you took out after once we got that one gear off.
The input will be 4th gear
Okay.
on one. This is 3rd gear, 2nd gear, 1st gear, so it builds
Okay.
back up. And then after the center section, it comes back 6th is on the bottom, 5th on the top, and then reverse is on the main shaft.
Okay.
There's probably where the shavings came from. A little bit beat up on 2nd.
Is it bad or not too bad?
That's not terrible.
Is it normal wear for a drag car?
Yeah, it'd probably clean up and be fine.
Right on.
As long as it ain't just plumb rounded over, usually they're pretty good. I would say it's probably gonna need a 1st gear.
Yeah?
Yeah. Look at the corner of those lugs, how they're flattened off.
Right.
But other than that, the main shaft and the tail house should be pretty decent.
You can see our input shaft here, the size of this one. And if you'll show them this one, this is the size. So these input shafts, you can run 2 different types of bearings. You use a flat face bearing and taper bearing. Ours had a taper bearing on it. So the apparently only output shaft you have.
Yeah, so the reason it's like this is because the Magnum stuff that G-Force does uses an OE main shaft. A Magnum F transmission, which is what you have, it uses a pocket bearing. So it uses that big stub on the end of the shaft. Well, until recently, you couldn't even get Magnum F gear sets from G-Force. So you couldn't use a Magnum F main shaft in a G-Force gear set. So what they had to do was use a Magnum F main shaft, modify it to work with a standard Magnum gear. That way they could put a Magnum F transmission together with that gear set. And like I say, that was prior to them actually having gear sets made specifically for Magnum Fs.
And so there's no difference in strength between this one and that one?
No, it's literally just this bearing style on the end. That's the difference. So we'll just have to modify that one to work the same as the one you had. This is a CBN insert. It's made for turning hard material. And that being a shaft, it's going to be hard on the surface. So we'll have to get that hardness off with a special insert. We have one of these because they're like $40 a piece.
You hear that, Mike? $40 for one. That looks nicked already. So that's like $10 off, man.
That one is.
Yeah, that's $10 off.
See how it looks like it's tearing it here, but it's shiny there?
Right.
That shiny is where it's hard. And the torn area, that's where it's actually softer. Where this insert's made to cut hard material, it kind of just tears that soft material loose. But that's what that looks like, hardened versus unhardened. If you took them to temperature all the way to the core, it's going to warp. So really the surface wear is the biggest thing on a shaft. So that's why they don't even need to be hardened in the very center anyway.
Aaron, can you make a quick breakdown on how this thing's getting put together? How the gears are set up and whatnot?
It's on the main shaft, it goes third, second, first gear, and then the input shaft will be your fourth gear.
And that whole thing is free spinning right now?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Like butter even?
Yep.
Wow.
Reassembled the main shaft, check shimming on everything, put the shift rail assembly in, interlocks in. Now we're assembling the overdrives on the transmission.
Thanks, you got presents for us. All right, guys, we're back at Matt Groin's shop here, personal shop, getting ready to put the clutch and the transmission back into Blasphemy. We are switching up to a new tilt and throw out bearing. The current one we have is a little bit small. The inner diameter of this was a little too close for tolerances, and with the input shaft was grabbing the inside and gulling up the throw out bearing. And that's been causing us issues for quite some time. We also found a few other issues yesterday. I can show you here. This is our current throw out bearing, and you'll see it's pretty galled up and bad. It's to the point where it's mushroomed out, and the cylinder won't even come out far enough for us to get the car in gear. That's been something we've been battling for a little while. Hopefully this will fix it.
We're going to do a test where we depress the clutch fingers to see if we have the proper disengagement.
Okay, well, let's do it.
All right, so I've got a dial indicator set up, and I'm just going to run this table up. They said about 300 thousandths, so we're going to go to 250 to see if they're loose at all, and then we'll go on over to 300. So we'll just, so there's 100, and that's 250 right there. So we can get us a screwdriver and poke those discs around to see if they'll slide now.
Okay, come to the other side. Oh, yeah, they're moving.
They're moving. Okay, let's go on to 300 and see how that feels now. Because 300 is what he said that it really needs to see. So that's about 300 right there. They should move pretty freely now.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Nice and free.
All right. And we can see that the bearing still has clearance around it, so it's not hitting the corner of the fingers or anything.
I'm not worried about that. It was just something that was in my head last night. And I literally woke up at 4 o'clock this morning and went, oh, man, I wonder if that's it.
All right. Well, it looks like we've got our disengagement issue solved, so now we can get it back in the car. We're putting the clutch back in, and the reason that we even took the clutch out is because of that hub being wore out, which was also wearing the input out on the spline section. So we took it apart, had to get a new disc in. They overnighted us a disc from Mantic, so now we're putting it back together.
I always, on a car, on the bottom sides of cars, I always try to put all bolts going that way.
That makes sense.
You know what I mean?
You want to spin these around then?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I always try to put all bolts going towards the back of the car. So just in case you do lose a nut or something like that.
I like that.
At least the bolt might stay in place.
I like that.
Just an old habit.
All right, this is the new tilt and slave. The reason we're putting that on there is because the one that was on the vehicle was hitting the input shaft.
As you can see here, this is all galled up aluminum. The aluminum's all galled up in the teeth right here. the collar on that, the sleeve on the old one was a smaller diameter, didn't leave any room, and probably didn't help with a couple other issues we had going on, but we're going to change this, give us a little more room. This is a problem that we've been fighting in Blasphemy for, I think this is going to be the third throwout bearing we've put in it in 6 months, 7 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Not good.
Yeah, I think this will
last a little longer than that.
It should last way longer than that, and I think this is going to solve that issue for sure. Yeah, because this has, like you say, it has a lot bigger ID here, so it's not going to touch the shaft. You can see it's got a ton of room around it, whereas the other one did not. And this one doesn't use shims like you're accustomed to using. This threads together, so basically you can adjust this up and down.
You can get pretty fine-tuned with that.
You can get pretty fine-tuned, yeah. So let's get it on there.
Okay, let's do it.
So now we can measure this, and brought one of our tools with us that we use, that we sell for this. Basically, it's just a tool to make this whole process a little easier.
Anything to make that stuff easier is fine by me.
Yeah. So
this can be a little tedious and a little brain challenging to some people at times.
It can be.
People like me, I struggle.
It can be. So we have, what we have is a spacer that's machined to a specific length. In this case, 4 1/4 inches. And then this thickness is 1/4 inch, so we've got 4 1/2.
Okay.
Right? So we have a known distance of 4 1/2 inches. And this has an arrow to tell you which direction to install it. It's going to actually install in this manner on the front plate.
Oh, up to here? Okay.
Yeah, and this is kind of like a target plate. If you've ever had one of those rear end setup kits, it's kind of like that for setting up differentials. So it's like a known distance target plate, basically. And this will go here. And we're going to add our other one down to the bottom.
Victoria, when we leave, make sure this goes with us.
Okay. So now, if you had your normal factory style slave, you'd pull it off, take the spring off, or you'd push it all the way down and hold it.
Right.
You can leave the spring on, but it's hard to do. It's hard to do that. In some vehicles, you have to do it that way because of the way they're made, but in case of us, we can do it this way. So basically, we have our known distance that's 4 1/2 inches from this face. Now we can take our caliper, we can measure down from our target to our bearing, just like that. 2562, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So
you guys are probably better than mine.
2562. All right, so we've got 2562 from our tool down to our bearing, and our known distance is 4 1/2 inches. So we're going to subtract our measured number from our known distance.
Okay.
And I will use a calculator and sheet instead of having to do it on paper.
And brain power.
Yeah, running low on that after this week. So that means our bearing is currently installed at 193. Yep. Yeah, okay. 1938. So now we have that base distance. We can go over here and check our bell housing depth to the fingers, and then get the appropriate gap that we want. So on the bell housing side, we're just going to use 2 of the bolts that the transmission is bolted in with.
Okay. And it's just getting mounted flat to
the face of the
face of it?
Yep. So over here on this side, we're going to use the same 2 bolt holes that we used on the front plate. So it's going to go on the same way, basically.
And then with multiple holes, we can check multiple fingers.
We can check multiple fingers, or we can make sure that we're perfectly parallel with the finger.
Right.
So on this side, our known distance is 1/4 inch. And you do your math a little backward on this one. So you measure your depth, and you subtract that 1/4 inch from it. Or if you have one of these that you can zero out digitally, you can put it on a quarter, zero it out, measure it, and then that's what the number is.
Got it.
We're gonna go with right here, so that gives us one we're perfectly in line with. So that's basically 2.5 plus 5 thousandths, so 2505. And that's pretty simple. That's going to be 2255 is what it's going to be. So 2
After you take the quarter off?
Yep, 2505 minus 0.25, it's going to be 2255.
Okay.
So currently we have 317,000, so we actually need to move that thing out just a little bit.
What is the standard kind of air gap you want in there?
Around 200,000.
About 200?
Yeah, if you have a clutch with a lot of wear, a clutch like this with a lot of wear, you need a little more gap because as it wears, it's going to get closer.
Yeah.
And it's going to reduce that gap. Right. So we're going to target around 200, which means 100 thousandths. And I think that thread pitch, I'll have to verify the thread pitch measurement, but I think that means to get 100 thousandths, I think we need to come out 2 turns because I think it's a 20 thread pitch.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, go up. Right there. Pretty close.
Okay.
Here it is. Now we gotta twist.
Which way would he?
Oh, no, we're pretty close. Just gotta get those downs in.
Right there.
There it is.
All right.
Backside of it, right next to it. All right. So next thing we have here is a new Tick Performance pump, oil pump here. That believes that the other one's probably not working.
Yeah, it's probably quit.
We wouldn't know any better anyways. But so we're going to go ahead and upgrade this one. This one is actually really nice. I'll let Matt explain how it's different from the Tilton one that we have on there now.
Okay. Well, this pump, we specifically sourced this pump to be a continuous duty high flow pump. So it can maintain the pressure that we want to see flowing through our spray bar system to lubricate the gears. It can maintain that pressure at different oil temperatures and different viscosities, but most importantly, it can also pump gear oil, which is what we run in a lot of the dog ring stuff, like this transmission is. We like that thicker fluid, that way it stays attached to the gear better under higher power. This pump is made specifically for that. So we went out of our way to make a pump kit that we can ensure will stay alive in the conditions that you guys are going to put them through. Being a drag and drive, you could probably run this thing constantly, just never turn it off, and it would be just fine. I do recommend shutting it off when you're on the highway doing your drive and then turning it back on when you get to the track to do your passes. Just don't forget to turn it on. But I have tested this pump myself at work. We have done a test, a 72-hour test. So basically we hooked it up to some gear oil and let it run for 72 hours unattended. We monitored the temperature and the pressure the whole time to see if it ever changed. The fluid, obviously it gets hot when you're running it through 72 hours straight, but the temperature of the fluid got up to about the same as what it would get up to in a street car application. And like I said, that was after about 24 hours it got to that temperature. It held just fine. It runs just fine. So we've put a lot of effort into it. The mounting bracket system, it tucks it nice and close to the transmission, so it's not hanging in the way. You don't have to figure out how to mount it on your chassis. And then we have a line kit that goes specifically for this. That way it all just is plug and play.
Nice. All right, well, let's get this one installed.
All right, let's do it.
And we're one step closer to pulling that down off the lift.
Yeah, let's do it.
Then they can fill the shop with smoke.
Yeah. So this is the new pickup fitting.
Oh, nice. It's got a filter on it.
Yeah, so it's screened. That way you don't have to have a pump. Well, what happens is sometimes those things got trash in them. And then that kills the pump, right? Yeah. It's just the nature of it. This is a gear pump. It has bronze gears in it, so it will actually pump some trash just fine. Those things don't typically like that because they're a valve type pump. And when they get trash in them, they just stop working. So you got to keep those really clean for them to stay working well. And they work good in a lot of applications, just not specifically in this one. So we got a screen fitting. That way it'll keep some of the loose bits that could get in there out of the pump. And it just screws in the tail housing and you hook your lines up. So it's pretty simple. You can take it out and clean it. It's reusable, so it's pretty nice. So yeah, let's get it in. I'll have to get some thread tape on it.
Just pull it right out of there. There you go.
It just sits there like that. And With that bolt like that.
All right, guys, Blasphemy is done. She's all back together, ready to go to PRI. I'm here with Matt. I'm gonna let Matt explain everything we did to the car, what upgrades we added to it, and where you guys can also get these exact same upgrades that we did. Matt?
Well, you know, you brought it in here. It had a busted main shaft. The tail housing was busted. Parts laying everywhere. So what we did is we pulled the transmission out. We took it over to TIC. We replaced the main shaft, a first gear, an input shaft, and a tail housing. And that got the transmission back together.
Right.
And then we bring it over here and we put in a new slave cylinder. We put in our fluid pump and line kit. And we had to modify the bell housing, so we ended up taking that to TIC. We milled it flat.
Made sure it's correct.
Yeah, made sure it was correct. We indexed it in. Then we put it all back together. Now we're ready to rock, thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we put a lot of good parts on it. You know, we put a tilt and slave cylinder on it, our pump and line kit, the tranny rebuild, all that stuff, you know, is available at tickperformance.com. So you can check us out online. You can check our Instagram, Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're all over social media.
Good. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it.
No
we wouldn't have
problem.
been able to get to PRI without you guys, especially considering our time frame where, you know,
under the gun.
Small thing we pretty much grenaded this thing. I mean, literally, there was pieces all over Alabama International Dragway, and those guys were not happy with us, that's for sure. So
I can imagine.
We're good to go now. I think we should leave some burnout marks in your shop, though, that's for sure.
I believe that is needed. 100%.
Right.
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. If I can't hear you for the rest of the week, you know why.
Oh, brother!
All right, so we've shown you how bad we blew up the transmission in my car. I take full responsibility.
It was a job well done.
Thank you. I mean, all the torques were applied, and yeah, she gave up. But it is fixed now, thanks to the guys at TIC. And as I told you guys before, I believe, and I'm not a scientist, you know, I've had some beers with them. I believe this problem was a direct result of a really sticky racing surface, tires that didn't spin, and a clutch that, you know, it's a sintered iron diaphragm style clutch that really doesn't want to slip. And I was trying to cut a light, unfortunately, and I just sidestepped it. And sidestepping the clutch, the whole thing just shocked the drivetrain and broke the output shaft of the trans. So, enter my friend Bill Armstrong, fellow drag weaker, and stick shift racer, who has created a product that will make any diaphragm clutch slip, like consistently slip.
Yes.
Essentially,
Yes.
I'm gonna let off the clutch pedal, and then his device is gonna take everything over, because I have a hydraulic throwout bearing, and then it's going to apply the throwout bearing, not me. And so I wanted to come by because I've had it on the car, as you know. It's been on there for a year. It's not even plugged in. We've never tried it. And on that day, I totally forgot about it being there. And you have offered to come help me test and make it work in my car, and I've never taken you up on it because the car's always broken. But it's currently fixed. It's here at PRI, and I'm hoping that on the way home from PRI, I get to stop at a drag strip before the year's over, because that's kind of my secret goal, is to have one good pass this year.
Yep.
And it's in the car. It's wired up, I think, although Newbern wired it, so there's that.
That's questionable.
So it's in there, but what I don't understand is exactly how it works and how I need to adjust it to make sure it works when I go to the drag strip.
Sure.
And you have a display. So.
I do.
So tell the people at home, what is it that you made?
All right, so the Bank Shift Billy is a digital clutch control device that allows a diaphragm style clutch to slip
like a slipper clutch at the drag strip, and you make adjustments to it with an app on your phone.
Okay.
So you're not crawling under the car, adjusting counterweights or base pressure or any of that.
Whose phone? Are we talking like weirdo iOS people, or are we talking about weirdo Android people? Are we talking about which weird people do you cater to?
Both bank of weirdos.
All the weirdos. Okay.
So I prefer Android, but it'll work on Apple, iOS, or Android.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Basically, what we've got here is a clutch setup in a car. Okay. The kit is going to include the Bluetooth controller and the hydraulic portion and a wiring harness. Everything else here is going to be part of the vehicle. Got a regular clutch pedal down here, hydraulic throwout bearing.
Yeah, yeah.
So on your car, we're going to set it up to activate with the Holly, which is how I do it on my own car.
Okay.
But in a car that's running an aftermarket ECU or even a carburetor, you might want to use a master switch, which is how I have it set up on the display. So you pull up to the line, you hit the master switch, it's ready to go. You dump the clutch, it's going to go out to the bite point or the delay.
Right.
And that's something that you dial in.
Okay.
And I can show you that in detail on the app.
Yep.
But that's where the clutch starts to engage or bite.
Right.
And depending on the track conditions, if it's a no prep, you can't bite or hit the clutch quite as hard because you'll knock the tires loose.
Right.
So you want to be softer on it. If it's a really good prep track and you're pretty confident your drivetrain can handle a little harder bite and it's not going to blow the tires off, you can hit it harder.
I'm not confident at all.
So you adjust the bite point and then you adjust the delay and how long it's going to slip for. So for right now, I can show you where we're at here. And right now, I have the launch slip set at 0.75. So it's going to slip the clutch for 3/4 of a second, and then it's going to release it. In a boosted car like yours, where you might actually be making additional power during that 3/4 of a second, we have a ramp function. I'm going to set the launch slip to 0, but we're going to utilize the ramp downtime. So we'll go to, say, 1.5 seconds for that. And you can see in the graph, instead of holding it and then releasing, as soon as you release it, it's going to start to release the clutch over 1.5 seconds.
So let's show the people at home how this moves with the pedal and then how it moves when this is active. So in a diaphragm clutch, when you step on it, the bearing hits the fingers. The fingers are a lever, so you're pushing this in, levering it this way to release.
Yeah. Clutch discs here are loose right now.
Right, so your foot's on the clutch, the bearing's in, you have no connection between the motor and the trans right now. Now as you let the clutch off, if you just step off of it.
Or I can dump it.
Yeah, just dump it.
This is how we break stuff.
That's how I broke mine. Now, bearing is off, foot's off the clutch, the discs are engaged, now the engine is coupled to the trans. And go ahead and for the people at home, just dump it one more. See how fast you can do this. Okay, that's what breaks stuff. That's what busts the tires loose. If you're lucky at the drag strip, it just spins the tires. If you're not lucky, it hooks like mine does and then just breaks the trans in half. So now show the folks at home, when you sidestep the clutch and this is active, how slowly it's going to release. There we go.
So that point it got to was the engagement point of the clutch, because really
the first little bit, not
this
doing
whole
much.
first section here, nothing's happening. It's not engaging. It's this last bit that we need to control right here. And that's what we're doing with this.
You created this because you have a fairly heavy stick shift car and you were having trouble 60-footing that thing, right?
It was, yeah.
And so what was your average 60-foot before you put this on your car?
Well, it was all over the place. That's the thing. And really, because what it is it's how good you can slip it with your foot.
Right.
Well, I tell you, when somebody's in the other lane, like a guy from Canada with a Pontiac and two-step and it sounds like guns going off, it's hard to control yourself. You just want to dump it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I could get it as low as the 1.3s, 1.4s maybe, but typically, 1.8s, 1.9s, 1.7s, it was all over the place.
Yeah.
With this, it's consistently been in the 1.4s with this.
Wow. So, and essentially how my car broke was I went up to the line, and I believe on that day we were on a Pro Tree, and I went up there with the plan of we're going to make one good hit, and then we're going to come back and we're going to try another throttle body. But I also had the plan of I need to work on my light, and I don't often get set with a Pro Tree. So as soon as I saw the ambers go, I went, oh, it's time to go. I was barely even on the two-step. I was on the two-step for maybe half a second. And I immediately just let off the clutch, which I don't normally do. I don't normally just dump the clutch because that is hard on stuff and it usually make you spin the tires. And I did it and that car jumped off the ground, didn't go 2 feet, and just broke the output shaft in half, which then had the drive shaft bang into the side of the tail housing of the trans and broke that. And, you know, I've learned a lot through this whole process. You know, we need the clutch to slip, but you know, a slipper style clutch requires constant adjustment for track conditions, or if you're like me and you're going to drive it on the street and take your kids to school, you don't want to have to crawl into the car and adjust the clutch before you leave for school. So I like the diaphragm. I have a 3-disc Mantic in there. I'm very happy with it. It's lasted a long time. It's great stuff. This, I think, is the solution to what I've been going through, which is either my car dead hooks the tire and bogs the motor, or does a wheelie, you know, or blows the tires off completely. You know, before we broke this, the week before, I was in Bakersfield, California on a track that didn't have a lot of bite. It was spinning the tires. I was pulling 10 degrees of timing out at the hit, you know, riding the clutch. I was doing all kinds of things, shock adjustments to get it to stop spinning the tires. That same setup that was in Bakersfield a week later broke everything on a prep track. Like, so this, I think, is going to help me, and if it doesn't, oh my God, I'm screwed, because the other thing I've learned on this is nobody makes a readily available aftermarket shaft for that trans. There's no main shaft you can buy that's going to stop what's happening, you know, to me. And maybe there was a flaw in mine. I don't know. Like, it was pretty gnarly the way it broke. I was surprised. And they tell me there's only 3 people that ever broke those, and apparently I'm one of them now. So unless somebody starts making better shafts, I can't drive my car the way I'm driving it.
You got the shaft, Mike.
I got the shaft. Self-inflicted. It's hard to do, but I did it.
And one of the things on here too is once you find a setting with the app for like a no prep situation, you can save that clutch setup. And then when you get to a prep track and you get it dialed in for a prep track, you can save it under my favorite prep track or whatever. And so as you find setups that work, you can save those. You don't have to just go back and look at notes or reinvent the wheel.
All right.
Yeah.
Shout out to the guys at Tick Performance for fixing the car, the guys at G-Force for warranting the parts I broke, and for Joe and Jordan for getting the car there, getting it to PRI, and for you for building this thing, because I really think this is going to help me. You know?
Thanks. Do you remember, was it maybe 5 years ago when you and I talked about this in the very, 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 very beginning?
Yeah.
So
I have an iteration of it that you sent me in a box that I never installed. It's a board. You sent me the board, actually. It wasn't even the whole thing. It was the board. And then you sent me another version that, hey, that wasn't this. It's an earlier deal. So to see this come to life, like I'm fired up for you, dude.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.